It's great to be back in Slater for 4th of July. This morning I woke up, turned on WHO TV, and found out it was going to be 100 degrees in Iowa today. So I thought, I'm going to quote some famous words from prior speeches. In conclusion, but I'll make it a little bit longer than that. And I mentioned to Bob, I'll keep it under an hour, and I saw his face get white. So anyway, last fall, the family of Joyce and Don Thornwall wanted to honor them with a park bench in Nelson Park for their 60th wedding anniversary. The story soon circulated by their unique courtship and why the 1951 4th of July celebration in Nelson Park holds a special meaning for the Thornwalls. Joyce was born in Mount Vernon, Iowa, to Lillian and Ralph Perky. She spent much of her childhood moving around the state of Iowa. It was during the start of the Great Depression, and since her father worked for the Northwestern Railroad, that meant a lot of moving and going wherever the work was. Don was born in Des Moines, and at the age of 3 moved to the family farm west of Slater with his parents, Pearl and Wilbur, soon to be joined by our sister Betty and myself. In 1937, Joyce and Don's paths did cross when Joyce lived in Slater for a brief time. One day her friend Lucille asked her to walk out to this farm where her relatives lived and they could play with this nice little boy who lived there. At that young age, Don may have already been smitten because he made Joyce a whistle and they had a fun afternoon. Don would later say that he did not remember his cousin Lucille, but he never forgot the pretty little girl with big brown eyes and brown hair. Economic times were still difficult, and Joyce soon was uprooted and left Slater. Then in 1948, Joyce and her parents settled for good in Slater on 2nd Avenue. Joyce took a job at the Slater Creamery and also worked part-time at the telephone office. One day, Joyce was working at the creamery when Don walked in. As soon as he left, Joyce told her friend, Verla May, that if he called, I would go out on a date with him. Don must have had the same thoughts because he called Joyce within 15 minutes. The first date happened, at least from Joyce's standpoint, didn't go too well. Don's car had a faulty door on the passenger side that continually flew open. Their date just went from bad to worse. Don did try to get Joyce to go out again, and he was met with a string of excuses and flatly turned down. But it doesn't end there. Don did muster the courage to call Joyce again for official second date. A year and a half later, we Thornwalls moved very slow. For some reason that neither can remember, Joyce said yes. So on July 3rd, 1951, Don and Joyce went to dinner at a restaurant in Des Moines called the Frontier Club. That evening went well, and things were looking up for the young couple. Incidentally, the Frontier Club burnt to the ground that same night that they were there. The next day, on July 4th, Joyce walked over to Nelson Park and spotted Don with his longtime friends, Arlo Erickson and Dale Lund. Don had just told them that he and Joyce had gone on a date the night before and had a pretty good time. Despite the fact that the weather was very cold that year, fireworks did fly, but in a very good way this time. And the pair were inseparable from that point on. They were engaged by September and married in December at the Slater United Methodist Church during an ice storm. The newly married couple moved to the family farm west of Slater, and Joyce was a quick study on the joys and struggles of being a farmer's wife. They talked about having 6 girls, that was really Joyce's idea, and settled for 3 instead. Their daughters Linda, Ellen, and Nancy will tell you that God blessed them with a jackpot for parents. Their lives often resembled a 60s television sitcom where the parents were firm, yet funny and loving, set a few rules and expected them to help with chores around the farm, but basically let them play as kids. Their mom and dad were, and still are, their biggest supporters and tended every and anything they're involved in. However, they also knew that if they got in trouble at school, facing the consequences at home were going to be far worse than anything that would happen to them at the principal's office. They now laugh and marvel that they made it to adulthood. As babies, they were often put on their stomachs to sleep, or given aspirin long before you knew that you don't give aspirin to a kid, and they'd pile into a station wagon or pickup camper before the safety of seat belts and car seats. They also didn't realize until later just how special it was growing up having their 4 grandparents live across the street from each other, where they could just play back and forth. They just thought it was grandparenting standard and just the way it was for kids. Their parents always made them feel safe, protected, loved, and have only recently admitted to them when it came to raising children, they used the wing and prayer method. Since they always thought they knew what they're doing, this confession came as quite a shock, but their parenting style seemed to work just fine. As the years flew by, along with raising a family, Don served in the National Guard, worked at John Deere and farm, while Joyce took care of the many day-to-day details. Both were involved in local committees and boards, active in Methodist Church, and always been a team, a really great team. In 2009, after 58 remarkable years, Joyce and Don left the acreage and moved to Slater to live in their dream home and have been smiling ever since. If you ask for advice on a lasting union after this rocky start, both Joyce and Don would just smile and say they've been blessed and they don't see what the big fuss is all about. Today's honor has triggered a special reunion for the Thornwall family, with members coming from California, Colorado, Missouri, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Iowa. As their family, we'd like to give a heartfelt thank you to the Slater Community Club, to Dick Shook for his wonderful painting of Slater Summer Days, and all the kind words from friends and well-wishers. In conclusion, for Joyce and Don, we hope this year's 4th of July celebration creates many new and happy memories for you both, as it was in 1951.